Good evening, everyone. It's your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I'm excited to be back with you for another episode of BGC Book Club. So, if you're joining us, come on in the room. Let me know that you're here, where you're joining us from. Feel free to share this out if you're familiar with our upcoming guests or if you just think that there are others who might be interested based on what you've read. As I said, I'm Marcy Thomas, founder of BGC Book Club, which has been around for actually since April of 2020. So a couple of years started during the pandemic because, as you can see, if you look behind me, I love to read, and especially I love to read books by, for, and about wonderful Black women. And tonight's guest is no exception to that. So as you're coming in the room, go ahead and get settled in, and I'm going to introduce our special guest for the evening. Tonight we have with us Abi Ishola-Ayodeji, who is an award-winning journalist who has written and produced for various platforms, including Elle.com, PBS, Ebony.com, City of New York Television, and more. As a reporter and TV producer, she's covered extraordinary people, places, communities, and events in New York City, DC, London, Paris, Nigeria, Ghana, and beyond. In 2017, Essence Magazine named her among its Woke 100 Women for launching Beyond Classically Beautiful, an acclaimed photo series turned lifestyle brand that celebrates Black women who defy traditional beauty standards. She is a first-generation Nigerian American who grew up in Miami Gardens, Florida, but treasures her brief stint at a secondary school in her homeland in Lagos, Nigeria. You can find her writing, brainstorming, and reading novels when she's not spending time with her husband and two adorable children. Tonight, we'll be chatting about her spectacular debut novel, Patience is a Subtle Thief. And without any further delay, welcome, Abby.
Hi,
Welcome,
Marcy.
welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for such an amazing introduction.
Yes, and I studied making sure I got the name right. So I hope I did good.
You said it perfectly. I was like, okay.
I did my studying.
Great job. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you so much for being with us. I know that, even though your book has been out for a few months, there are still congratulations in order because you've been getting a lot of great praise and having a lot of wonderful opportunities based on your debut novel.
Yes. It's been a whirlwind and a very new experience. And I am so grateful and grateful to you for this opportunity. So I thank you. And I thank your listeners and the people that read along with you.
Yes. And we really do appreciate you. So tell us a little bit about what prompted you to actually write a novel, because you have a lot of experience, as I mentioned, as a journalist, as, creating documentaries and things like that. So what was it that drew you to actually writing your first novel?
Well, what drew me to writing, I always say this first. My father, when I was growing up, he would tell my sister and I folk tales in the middle of the night, like if we couldn't sleep, or at night before we go to sleep. He would tell us Nigerian folk tales and stories about his family and things that happened in Nigeria. It was always so vivid. And he was a great orator. The way he would recite these stories, I was always very pulled in. So I think that was my first introduction to storytelling, was listening to stories. And then I had this friend when I was 6 years old who, she didn't stay very long in Miami, but when she was there, I remember we would tell each other stories. We would just come off the top of our head with stories. And those experiences, for some reason, they stayed with me for a long time. They really kind of informed who I became. And also in high school, a teacher of mine affirmed the fact that I was a great writer. So I think that writing had always been something that I wanted to do. And obviously in journalism, I'm able to write. And fiction was something I wanted to tackle because it's a very different medium, of course. And again, the art of storytelling, fiction, folk tales was something that I was drawn to from a young age.
Right, and that's great. I just think that it's wonderful that you were able to glean some of those stories from, your father, because as we mentioned, you were born and raised here, and of course you had opportunities to go back to Nigeria and spend time in Lagos and things like that, but it wasn't necessarily your day-to-day lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was great that you were able to learn and glean and kind of get an insight into what that culture and what, those experiences were through your dad.
Yes, yes. And also meeting a lot of Nigerian women who lived there and went to school there, listening to their stories, and then my time there. I'm so grateful to the people that grew up in Nigeria who've read my book and who've said, I cannot believe that you only lived in Nigeria for a year, because it
Wow.
was very authentic. And that was something that I was really, really leaning towards. I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. I wanted it to sound like Nigeria and feel like Nigeria, and I hope I accomplished that.
Right. I haven't been there, but it felt like it to me. So as I was
Thank
telling you
you.
off screen, I watch a lot of Nollywood films. So
Yes.
it's like, yeah, this feels like some of the things I'm seeing in some of the movies that I've watched. So it felt that way to me. But with that, just give us a little overview of what the story is actually about for those who may not have had an opportunity to read Patience is a Subtle Thief yet.
Sure. So, Patience is a Subtle Thief follows the life of Patience Adewale. She's a young girl, 18 years old. She just got home from boarding school. She is ready to embark on university, but there's this thing in her life that hasn't been completed, meaning she doesn't know where her mother is. She hasn't seen her
Mhm.
mother in 10 years, and her father knows, but her father won't disclose that information to her. So when she goes away to school in the big city, she starts to get some answers and clues as to where her mother is in America. So she goes on this journey of trying to figure out how to get to America to reunite with her mom. But along the way, she realizes she needs money, and she gets into a few shady dealings to gather the money she needs. But the book is also set again in Nigeria against the backdrop of the 1993 election there, which was a historic election in Nigeria. A man named MKO Abiola, I always kind of compare him to Obama,
Mhm.
because Nigeria had been through years and years of military dictatorships, and the military promised to hand it over to a civilian. So he ran for president. He ran for the presidency, and everyone was really excited, and everyone voted for him. But things didn't
Mhm.
really go as planned.
Right.
So the elections and the political climate, it affects my characters in different ways. So yeah, that's basically what it's about.
Right. And I really enjoyed reading it because one of my notes I put, I got some African history and culture when reading. I got to see the politics. Then there was crime, there was romance, there was a bit of
Yeah.
coming of age. So, I mean, you cover a lot of ground in telling the story of Patience and the things that she was, dealing with.
Yes. Yeah, that was my goal, because I have met girls like Patience in New York when I first moved to New York. I met people that came to America doing some things that were really not legal. But they got to a point where they felt they had to, because they needed to get here for whatever their reasons were. And I was so inspired by that. And that was back when I was an undergrad. And I'm no spring chicken, I always I always say. So that those stories stayed with me. And when I started writing this, it was in undergrad, during a
Okay.
screenwriting class. Um, our assignment was to write the first act of a screenplay.
Okay.
So I said, let me write about a young girl who gets into these shady dealings to get to America. So from that point, after the class, I didn't know how to make a movie, but I knew
Mm,
that I always loved writing. So I
right.
decided that I was going to make it a book. But along the way, as a writer, you doubt yourself, you live your life, and things take, you put things on the back burner. And that's what I did with this book for a long time. But then I
Mm.
decided I really wanted to finish. So that's how I'm here.
All right, and we're glad that you did. So, just in terms of, and then we'll get into some of the themes of the story, but just in terms of that process, you say you started and then you decided to pick it back up. From the time you completed the story to it hitting, reaching us, about how long was that process?
Oh my God. I finished undergrad in 2004. No, actually 2005. Sorry. Just to give you an idea of how long the story has been with me. But seriously, writing, I would say it took me about 4 to 5 years when I decided that I was going to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone through various iterations. But I've had to rewrite things, do things over. I wasn't sure if it would get picked up. There was so many obstacles along the way, but my goal was to finish. And I'm happy that I stayed true to that because, as you can see, we are here.
We are here. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. One of the things that really stood out to me in the story is just looking at how patients, there's so many different things that she's dealing with at one time. It's like she's dealing with, trying to figure out what happened to her mom. Yet she's also trying to discover herself and figure out what she wants to be. She's, dealing with this guy that she meets along the way, the romance piece of it, and trying to navigate that relationship with him. And it really is a lot, but it speaks to the lives of what a lot of 18-year-olds, which is what she is in this story, what a lot of 18-year-olds are dealing with.
Absolutely. When I was writing it, there were points where certain things weren't included. But as I step back and look at her or think of her as a real person, I had to really come to terms with the fact that she needed to be fleshed out. She needed to have goals and dreams. So it wasn't just about finding her mom. That was a big piece. But who did she want to become? She really didn't know. So she was exploring. She knew what she liked.
Right.
She wanted to become a designer or wants to become a designer. But she knows that her father would never support something like that. So she goes on that journey of trying to figure out who she is on that end and also who her mother is and where her mother is. And as you said, the love piece, because, when you're raised by your father, you don't know where your mother is, and your father is not the most nurturing parent. She was constantly in search of some sort of love and feeling like someone loved her or cared enough for her. So yeah, that was her as a whole person. When I step back and look, like, who is this character and what does she need?
Right. And like I said, that's true because we are multidimensional people who will be dealing with a lot of different things all at the same time. Some things might take precedence, at different times, but we're still, it's all there for us. But, like you just mentioned, the whole thing of, her father wanting her to do one thing, but her having another dream. That is a common theme that I hear with either children of the diaspora or immigrant children in general.
Yes.
That oftentimes their parents will set aside or tell them who they're supposed to be or who they're supposed to marry, how they're supposed to live, versus giving them the autonomy to make their own choices. So it looks like you froze there for a second. Everybody, hold on. Looks like she's frozen for a moment, but we'll get right back to you. One moment. And feel free, if you have any questions, please, you can leave those in the chat as well. Hold on one second. Be right back.
Hi.
All right.
Oh
Okay.
God, so sorry.
That's
Was
okay.
that my
We're
fault?
back. Just had a little technical difficulty there for a
Oh,
moment. Well, thank you so much. Glad you could get back to us. But
same.
I don't know how much of what you heard that I was talking about, but just I guess the whole thing of young children of from the
The
diaspora
diaspora.
or immigrant families kind of being led in a certain direction.
Yes, I heard that, and I was shaking my head the whole time because that is it. I think that a lot of immigrants come over and they have a goal to, live a life that's better than what they've seen back home, because of economic issues or whatever, the issues are and wherever the homelands are. But I know as a Nigerian immigrant, Nigerian immigrants are very big on education because they believe that education is the way to any kind of achievement or any kind of, affluence or success. So when it comes to the arts,
Right.
that's kind of like pause. How are you going to make money from that?
Right.
So yes, I will say though, my parents were a little different. So I'm grateful. My parents were very supportive of, the things that I wanted to do. I think my dad secretly was a fan of the arts. So
Okay.
I think that he saw the value in it. So I was never really steered into becoming a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. So I do appreciate that. But a lot of my friends and family members have had to deal with that. Yes. And in Nigeria, yes, living in Nigeria, my uncle who, took care of me, my sister at the time, he's very big on education. He's a lawyer and he's a businessman. So for him, that is huge. So yes, absolutely. So
Right.
Patience is dealing with that. She's dealing with a father that is expecting certain things from her.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Right, and that, and there. I mean, there's so many things in the story. Can't even really touch on all of them in the short time that we have. But there's that, and then there seems he's also he's a present parent, but he's a distant parent at the same time. So
Hmm.
she's dealing with a sense of abandonment. As I saw it, like what happened to my mom. And yes, I have these other people in my life. The stepmother and this half sister or sister in my life as well, but
Yeah.
there's still this longing to reconnect with her mother.
Yeah. I think what I really wanted to do, because I also met a lot of girls in Nigeria who some their fathers had custody of them. Their fathers had custody of them, and their mothers were somewhat banished from their lives. And I've always thought, wow, because
That's
of course, in America, it's pretty much the opposite. It's usually the mother that gains custody of the child and has the biggest say so in how that child is reared, et cetera, et cetera. So I really wanted to explore that. Like, what does that mean for someone who may have a father who's not as nurturing or who's not as attentive? Not saying that fathers can't be, but
right, right.
from what I've seen in those situations, I've seen young women from Nigeria suffer in small and big ways because they didn't know where their mom was or their mother wasn't allowed to take care of them, to raise
Hmm.
them. So I thought, wow, this is kind of mind blowing.
Right,
Yeah.
it is different, and
Hmm.
once again, it's not giving away too much, but just in reading it, to me, it seemed for a couple of reasons. Well, number one, misogyny,
Exactly.
patriarchy.
Patriarchy. Exactly. Those were all the themes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Why, wherein, the man would be deemed more powerful or more important or what he
Exactly.
wanted took
Hmm.
precedence. But then, kind of a sidebar to that is the fact that when there were women who wanted to maybe buck against the system a little bit and not
Hmm.
want to, follow those rules, those
Hmm.
women would be the ones that would be apt to get pushed to the side.
Exactly. Exactly. So you hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, I've seen cases where, girls were given to another wife, the father's other wife to raise this child. And it's like, how and why? And it's because he said so, and yes, patriarchy and misogyny are huge, huge themes in the book.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And of course, we've already touched on it a little bit, just the time frame, because this is taking place in the 90s, and you're dealing with, the political climate and trying
Hmm.
to move from one that is definitely very corrupt and looking, to bring this new person in. But at the
Hmm.
same time, you're also dealing with, and a lot of us remember, all of some of the petty crimes and scams and stuff that were going on that we would hear about during
Yes.
that time frame. So talk a little bit about that for those who might not be familiar with it.
Yes. Well, I think a lot of people know that Nigerians have become kind of notorious for these email scams. These scams where you get an email from someone who says, "Well, I know a prince, and if you send me money, we could free this prince in London." And we've all gotten these crazy emails. So I really wanted to explore, how did this start, and like, what are the origins of this thing? So as I did research on it, especially for the 90s, since that's the time frame that I chose, I realized that this was happening on the ground in Nigeria as well, in small ways and in big ways. And the term that Nigerians use for this kind of, it's called advanced fee fraud, but Nigerians call it 419.
Okay.
So, 419 translates as fraud. So it could be bank fraud, it could be, real estate fraud, or someone that just comes off as a fraud. So those were the things I wanted to explore, because I remember seeing a lot of news stories here in the US about people who had been swindled out of their life savings, and these people in Nigeria, what are they doing? And for me, I wanted to put a human story on this. Why would someone be this desperate to send out emails all day, to gain money from someone that doesn't live in their country? So of course, in the 90s, the internet boom hadn't taken place.
Right.
So, I explore it on the ground in Nigeria. And then also, one of the characters describes how he started with letters. It started with letter writing, and they would literally mail these letters out in the regular mail, in snail mail. So it just, again, as the internet became more popular, it became an email thing. So, yeah.
Right. And it's something to really think about, because, a lot of people have misconceptions of what it means to be in Africa or to be in Nigeria, as a whole. But
Yeah.
when you think of people like, say, yourself or your parents who came here and were able to go and get the education, or go to the UK, or other places that land. Those are people who will have to have some level of means to even be able to do that.
Yeah. A lot of it is, like my father, his aunt was the one that was able to gather the money to send him away, because his mother had passed. His father had several wives. So she gathered the money to get him, to America. And then by then he had already known my mom. So he sent for her. A lot of men, they sent for their wives to come and live and, build a family in America. So it's very, I would say there's a lot of privilege there. But even with that, sometimes it takes hard work, because his aunt, she was okay, but she wasn't this wealthy person, but she believed in him. So that's what it took for a lot of people to get here. Some got here with scholarships from colleges, but a lot was the village or the family coming together to send this person that they believed in away to, the land of the white man. It's called Ilu Oyinbo, but well, Yoruba people call it that, but it's called the land of the white.
The land of the white man. Well, yeah, that it is. But but the thing that, how can I put it? I don't, and even in the story, it does humanize the people who are doing criminal activities, because they're doing it because they have a sick relative that they want to be able to get medical care, and in some cases you got to pay up. It's not like here where you can get it done and then they'll just mess up your credit for the rest of your life. There's like, you have to pay up front to get these things done. So when you have people that are trying to maintain households and maybe live in Lagos and have families that live in some of the smaller villages or whatever, and they're trying to still support them, you can see why sometimes people may have to, by any means necessary, try to figure out ways to survive. So it's not just necessarily a thing where people just criminal just for the sake of being criminal.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was what I wanted to explore, because, at the end of the day, and that's why the government is a big piece in this, because governments, determine a lot of the decisions that people make in their countries. And if the government isn't doing right by the people will find a way. They have to, because how do you survive? It's, I mean, just like in America, when we think of African Americans and how, we talk about, maybe the 80s, the crack epidemic, and how some people had to do certain things because there was no silver spoon in their mouth, and the government was doing the bare minimum for the people. So it's basically the same with my characters. Although some characters are affluent, there's still these social issues that, you know, kind of have a foot on people's neck. You know, like people are not feeling as free as they should be. And that was the part of the theme that I explored too.
Yes, there's just something, a lot to be said for having a sense of freedom.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
now, one thing, just in terms of the romantic piece, is it Chike?
Yes, perfect. Yes.
Okay, all right. So I got a little
Yes,
Naja
you
and
do.
nieces.
Yes, you do. I can tell you watch Nollywood.
Yes, yes, I definitely do. One of the things that was interesting, even about his story, you know, he and Patience connect, and you know, they have a friendship that evolves. So one of the things I found interesting about him is that he is one of those people that stayed at home, but got the education and all of that, you know, but he still struggled.
Yes. Um, Chike he's the boy in the family that was expected to go out into the world and bring back the wealth, bring back the prize. But unfortunately, because of the government, he wasn't able to do it as easily as he had thought he would be able to. Because in Nigeria, a lot of it, you know, as we talk about race so much here, a lot in Nigeria is about class. Class, what class are you? And sometimes even finding a job, if you don't have the connections and you know, your family's not connected, you may not get the job that you want, you know. So at the time, like back when I started writing this, I had heard about so many educated young men who had been, you know, had gone to school, had degrees, and they were Okada drivers. Okada meaning motorcycle cabbies. So they're driving these motorcycles around to make money. And it was just, for me, I'm like, wow, you can go to school and have a profession like engineering and not be able to practice. It blew my mind. And of course, we see that sometimes here, but there are certain professions here where you're almost guaranteed something, you know, and engineering, I would think, would be one of them. So that's Chike. You know, Chike, he's one of my favorite characters because he has so much hope and he wants so much and he wants to do things and he can't live his life the way he wants or love the way he wants because he doesn't feel like he's enough because he can't find a job.
Right.
So
Right. And yeah, and for me, that was admirable. Actually, I liked his character as well because even though there were times where, you know, Patience is like, "What's going on with you?" You know, here I am. I'm, you know, I'm ready for you, whatever. And he's like, like, you know, most men, well, I'm not gonna say most, a lot of men would not operate that way, you know, but he was like, no, it's not that I don't care for you. It's just, I want to be able to do things in a right way and in a certain way. And, you know, I have obligations to my family and, you know, all these different things. So I found that very admirable about him.
Yeah, he had a lot of shame. He was holding on to so much shame of not being what he felt that he should be. So that hindered him from loving her and loving, you know, the people around him the way he would have if he did have what he needed. So yes.
Of course, Patience, you know, her goal is to get to America.
Yes.
And in the story, you see little bits and pieces of American culture, whether it's music and things like that. So I'm like, okay, we know that our music makes it over there.
Oh yes.
Things like that. God. So they're loving our hip hop and all of that stuff.
I actually did a promotional video on Instagram about music because, you know, that's one of the themes in my book, and I love music. So I felt that including the music of that era was really important. Patience, again, she knows that her mother's in America. She just doesn't know where. So she's obsessed with America. She's obsessed with the idea of being there. She knows that she was born there, but she doesn't know enough. So she kind of clings to the music, and you know, she watches Oprah, and she watches the TV shows, and so yes. And also in the video that I did, I talked about how that era in Nigeria, hip hop and R&B was so huge. It was so huge there. I mean, that was all that was really on the radio when I went to Nigeria, and I was really surprised at the time. And what's beautiful about that is I've gotten to see, and I know a lot of people have gotten to see how that era has now kind of morphed into what we see as Afrobeats,
Yes.
where it's a blend of R&B and hip hop and all the homegrown music in Nigeria. So it's like this molding of it, and I think it's just amazing because, of course, I think we are all linked in various ways.
Absolutely.
But of course, music is one of the things that kind of binds us together in very cool ways. So yeah.
Yeah, I really love seeing that. So I'm like, okay, and I kind of know, not from being on the motherland, because I haven't been yet, but I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in Spain, and that was one of the things that surprised me when I would go to the clubs and stuff like that. It would be Black music, and I'm like,
Yes.
okay, they weren't playing Spanish music; they were playing Black music.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in my video that I'm talking about, I said I know hip hop and R&B went viral throughout the world because, and I always say that, you know, the influence of African American culture is so profound, and I just hope that people understand how amazing African American culture is and how amazing it is that Black people have been able to do what they've done in this country with very little. It's mind blowing. So Black people should be proud in America.
Yes, absolutely. Be proud of what we've done, and as much as people try to take it away from us, we still know that we are the creators, we are the originators, and that, you know, we can own that, just knowing that.
Yes.
But this also brings up something you and I kind of talked about a little bit before we came on. This whole thing of, you know, being an African that might live in America. Or an African American who was born here, or maybe a person that was in Africa and moved here. So there are a lot of different ways in which the cultures kind of merge. And then there's sometimes in the midst of that where there can be conflict just because of the fact of, you know, people have differing thoughts about who's who and what's what.
Yes.
So from your experience, just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say first is, you know, and I know that there's a lot of talk, especially now online, about, you know, immigrants from Africa and how they, you know, maybe a little bit arrogant and how they treat African Americans. One thing I want to say, especially, you know, using Nigeria as an example, Nigeria has several tribes and racial ethnic groups, and a lot of them don't get along. So I think that what many of us need to understand is that tribalism is deeper than Africans from Africa don't like African Americans. Africans in Africa don't like Africans in Africa. It's like we all got problems. Like we all have these biases. These I'm better, and my tribe is better, and my culture is better, my language is better, my religion is better. So I think that this issue is so much deeper than African Americans versus African immigrants. But I think that right now, because we're seeing, you know, Afrobeat, and we're seeing Nollywood, and we're seeing a lot from Africa and West Africa, people have kind of honed in on that in some ways. And I get it too. You know, one thing I'll say is that, you know, my generation, we have had to kind of educate our parents, you know, because they came here with certain things that they had heard, you know, and they also experienced certain things from African Americans that weren't so welcoming. So they formed these ideas of what African Americans are. Not all, but, you know, some people. But I think that this issue is so deep and so big, and it's sad, to be honest. And I don't really know what the solution is. But I think what I will continue to do is uplift Black people in general. You know, I see value in Black people, and I feel that we're linked. I feel that we're family. We're just family that might not understand each other. We have our differences, and they are beautiful. But we need to continue to see and to learn from each other, and to feed off of one another. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. And that's why for me, in doing the book club and some of the other things that I do through Brown Girl Collective, that's why I like talking to people like you. If
Oh, thanks.
anybody's been following for the last, 2.5 years, I've had people on, who actually might still be living in Ghana or Nigeria
Wow.
or wherever. Or actually I've talked to some women who live in other parts of Europe as, Black women living in European countries,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day there are those things that bind us together. There are
Mm-hmm.
those experiences that we all kind of have just showing up as a Black person in the world. And
Yes,
the more that we can see the things that we have in common, maybe that some of that can help bridge that divide.
absolutely.
um,
And the funny thing is, like I said, I think judging from Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians think African Americans are the coolest people. So it's so weird that we all have these things that we go through in terms of differences and these petty squabbles about who's who and what's what. I wish it wasn't that way. I really do.
hmm hmm And another thing, just more people are actually starting to travel to the homeland, so that that makes a difference as well,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah, of course.
you can see it for yourself. You're not just going off of something that you've heard or something that you've read.
Yeah.
You can actually see it for yourself. Because like I think I told you earlier, I found out that my maternal heritage goes back to Sierra Leone, which I haven't been there yet,
Yes.
but it is on my list of things to do for that
Yeah.
very reason, to have that stronger connection.
Yeah. I bet it's so beautiful there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'll say is being a Nigerian who grew up in America, I'm othered by Nigerians. So it's like you can never win. You can never win. There's always going to be someone who sees something in you and you're like, oh, you're not like us. You're over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to deal with that. And part of my next novel, hopefully, by God's grace, that's what I'm exploring. I'm exploring a young girl who's growing up in America with Nigerian parents and what her parents have to go through and what she's going through. So,
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. We'll definitely look forward to that. Because as in this story, it's no spoilers, but Patience finds her way. She goes through a lot of ups and downs, but
yeah.
she ultimately finds her way and discovers, who she wants to be and how she wants to live. But one
Hmm.
thing about the title itself, it actually means two different things. I found
Hmm.
as I was reading the book.
Yes.
Patience is a subtle thief.
Hmm. Yes.
But then there is a comment made in the book, basically talking about the virtue of patience
Yes.
also being a subtle thief.
Hmm. Yeah. What I had this working title for so long because again I've been writing this book for so long and I'm like this cannot be the title, but this is just what I'm going to have as a placeholder. I really wanted something that spoke to what was happening in the country, how people think about the idea of waiting on something. So
Mm,
the people had been waiting on democracy. They had been promised year after year that, oh, this is it, we're going to hand things over to a civilian president, and people waited and people were excited and they voted, and it was a free and fair election, but it was stolen from them.
mm,
And that happens a lot, when you think about around the world, the things that people wait on, like the fact that in America we're still waiting for civil rights in a
right.
lot of ways, and you would think that's a basic human right.
Mhm,
Basic human rights, even in Nigeria, like having running water, like certain things that are basic human rights, the fact that people have to wait on the country to get better.
mhm,
So I really wanted to explore how some people can feel like waiting on something can be um, to their detriment. But
mhm,
I do believe in patience. I believe in it as a virtue. But one thing I did do through my research of patience, the actual virtue, I found out that um, life's hardships, like the things that we wait on that are considered, hardships,
mhm,
it's the hardest it's the hardest kind of patience to stomach, and people get sick from waiting on things that are basic human rights.
mhm,
So I really wanted to use this book as a way to speak to that, to speak to why are we waiting on these things, why are
mhm,
these things not just available to us. So, and then obviously Patience, she's stealing some stuff. So
Right. So she is subtly. So
yes,
yes, she's subtly stealing. So
she's
yeah.
stealing.
So when I got to that part, I'm like, oh, yeah,
Yes.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, and Patience is a common name in Nigeria. It's a very common name, so it just flowed well.
But yeah, it worked out really good in that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I really enjoyed reading the story. For those of you who haven't had a chance to read it yet, I really do suggest. Well, you see the copy there. Hers is the right way. Mine is backwards. But I do hope that you pick up the story and read it because, as I mentioned before, you're going to get some crime, you get some African or Nigerian history, you'll learn something about the culture and the food, and and just see how these characters, the variety of characters, just navigate their way through the circumstances of the time. So thank you for
Yes,
that. So
thank you.
you're welcome. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to talk to you about another thing that you worked on that you were recognized for a few years ago by Essence, and that is your Beyond Classically Beautiful platform. So tell us a little bit about what that is, and what prompted you to start it.
Yes, thank you for bringing it up. Beyond Classically Beautiful, it started as a photo series. What had happened was, the New York Times published an article calling Viola Davis less classically beautiful than Halle Berry.
Mm,
And we, as black women, we know exactly what that means. It's, steeped in colorism, racism being the root of it. So then I go on Twitter and I see all these black women hashtagging in solidarity with Viola Davis, less classically beautiful. Oh, I'm less classically beautiful if she is. And I sat at my desk and I'm like, no, we are not less classically beautiful. So the word beyond classically beautiful popped into my head. And my husband, who's a photographer, we've collaborated on different things. And at the time, I had a fashion blog, so I was always looking for ways to share beauty, and of course, beauty of Black people. So I went to him and I said, let's do a photo series celebrating Black women. And he said, okay, sure, let's do it. And my cousin, who's an awesome makeup artist, hairstylist, she's an artist extraordinaire. She did the makeup and the hair for the models, and we put it out, including the stories of the women that we featured, how
mhm.
they've navigated being Black women, being how they felt about their beauty growing up, and how they feel now. And I wasn't expecting it, but it went viral.
Mm,
The Huffington Post picked it up, so everyone picked it up. Beyond that, one of our models, she actually was working at the Huffington Post at the time, and she decided to share it on Huffington Post, so it went viral. And we were really excited because we really wanted Black women to kind of have a win from that terrible, experience of one of our own being called less anything. It just
right.
it just hurt. And for me, someone who's experienced colorism while growing up, it hurt a little bit even more, like
Mhm.
here we go again. So I really wanted to celebrate Black women. So it's had different iterations since then. That
Mhm.
was 2014. We've done several photo series. Our Body Noir, which was celebrating the bodies of Black women, that had also got picked up by several media outlets. As you said, Essence honored me as one of the Woke 100 women because of it. And then now it's a lifestyle brand.
Mhm.
So, like my shirt, it says "Gifted Black Girl" is one of
Okay.
the shirts that we sell, and we have some other sweatshirts that have different slogans that basically celebrate Black women and our greatness. So that's
Right.
it in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, I think that's really powerful. And,
Thank
just
you.
honing on the fact that, that whole word less, that's a diminishing word.
Of course, it is.
So I love the fact that you were able to take that and kind of flip that on its
Mhm.
head. You
Yes, especially for Viola Davis. I mean, come on.
Right.
She's beautiful, so talented, one of the most talented women that we've seen do what she does. So
Hmm.
I just could not stand there and allow that to just be our story. So
Right.
I'm very, very pleased that the media picked it up in the way they did to turn this negative thing into a positive thing.
And that's powerful. That's like, I can't remember who said it, but there was a quote, something out there like, "Don't let somebody call you a minority for the same reason. Like you're minor, you're not a minor
Yeah,
person, you're a major person.
that's
So don't let
right.
somebody call you a minority.
So
You know,
true. Words have so much power,
you have a lot
and
of
I
power.
love words. So when I saw less, I was like, no, we're not going to. We're
Mm,
not doing that. We're
like,
not
not
doing that.
today.
Yeah, especially knowing how Black women are. We are
Right,
so dope. I
right,
mean, so dynamic, so amazing. And then we come in like various shapes, color, like hello, we
right.
deserve to be celebrated. So that was the point of the whole thing. So
Right, and
yeah.
I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Which also leads me to something that happened recently in your homeland of Nigeria, that they just recently banned white and British models. I think it's going to take place starting in October. So, what do you think about that?
Oh my, first of all, it shocked me. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. There have been things that have come out of Nigeria that are not positive, that I cringe. So to see that, I was like, oh wow, this is a huge stance that a lot of us will never see, because, especially in America, because this is not a Black nation. So to
Right,
say there can't be, this group of people, it's just not even possible. So thinking about it in that sense, that this is possible in a certain nation or anywhere in Africa, is pretty powerful. And I think that, I hope that people are not going to be offended by this, because at the end of the day, it is a Black nation.
mhm,
And Black people deserve to be lifted up wherever they are. And also, going back to a few years ago, well, several years ago, I went to Nigeria and Ghana, and I did a series. I did several stories there. One of the stories I covered was a man there who makes African dolls. He dresses them in Yoruba attire or different ethnicity attire, and they're Black. They have braids. They're just really beautiful Black dolls. And as I interviewed him, he said that all the girls there want Barbies. They want white
mhm,
dolls. And I'm like, what?
mhm.
Here? We hear that story here all the time. So you wouldn't expect that to be the case in a place where it is a Black nation. Everyone you see is pretty much Black. Yes, there are foreigners, but foreigners are the minor
Right,
minority.
they are the minority.
Exactly. So you're like, white dolls? Oh no. But I think that a lot of young girls there have they have an obsession with anything foreign too. Okay, this is from
True.
another country. This is, so it becomes more of a novelty to them. So I was really proud of what he did, proud of what he was trying to do. So hearing that news, it made me think of him right away, because I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, I think that people in Nigeria need this. They need this, because this is how minds are changed about our own image.
Mhm.
TV and ads are so powerful. Social media, the things that we see on social media is so powerful. I mean, think about what we're seeing with, plastic surgery and how people are
Mhm.
changing their bodies, which I am not against. But at the same time, we're seeing it so much because we're
Right.
seeing it so much. So if people are seeing certain things too much, what does that do to you? What does that do to your
Mhm.
psyche? So for me, I'm happy that they did this, and I hope that certain people won't be offended.
Right. And, and sometimes even if they are,
you know,
you know,
listen.
because it is a Black nation. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and it
You have to
makes
take care of
sense.
your own. Yeah.
Right, right. And I mean,
Mhm.
I can understand how that may have happened, because, colonizers
Mhm.
and people have this, some people have this mindset of, if it's of this other culture, that it's somehow better, or, it's more
Exactly.
intelligent, or it's more beautiful, or, whatever
Mhm.
the case may be. But I think
Yep.
one of the blurbs that I saw about this new initiative is that, hey, we got 20 million beautiful Black people around here.
Yes.
Why do
Like,
we need
why
to?
are they not working?
Yes.
Why are
Why
they
are
not doing the
we
ads?
right? Why are we not giving our people the opportunities?
Absolutely.
So, like,
Yeah,
make
and
it
I
make
think that,
sense.
yeah, and people need to embrace who they are. Like, I think of, going back to Afrobeat.
Mm,
I kind of watched Afrobeat become what it's become, of course, from afar. at one point I had a radio show that used to air in Nigeria. So I used to play these songs for, it's been about 10, 15 years. So seeing how a lot of the artists started, they started with homegrown stuff. Of course, like the models were from Nigeria. A lot of the videos were shot in Nigeria. But as a lot of them got, more fame, they started going to South Africa a lot. The models, they were looking a little different, a little lighter, But I think that once some of them tried to cross over to America during that whole process of, bringing Afrobeat to America, it didn't really work for some at first because they were trying to sound American. And a lot of the artists realized that that's not what Americans want to hear. They want to hear us. They want to hear our authenticity. So now I'm seeing the videos kind of return back to that authentic Nigerian thing, which is very important. And also other countries in Africa, because Afrobeat, it spans across Africa. So yeah.
Right.
So these things are important. They're important.
They are very important. They are very important. If there's any takeaway, final thought, whether it's about the book or just, the things that are happening between, a lot of the, what should I say, embracing African culture or Nigerian culture as Americans, is there any final thought or something that you just love to share with us or be able to take away from our time together?
I don't know. I feel like we covered so much, but what I will say is that I will continue to write stories that uplift Black people, Black women especially. I love Black women. And I think that as we continue to support each other, we will continue to see our essence grow in this country and beyond. The fact that I'm sitting here with you is so amazing, and I thank you. And I think of all the Black women that have done so much to uplift Black writers, because who was doing this before, So I thank you and I appreciate you. So yes, that's what I would leave with.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Where can we look to see you next, or something that I know you're working on a new book?
Yes.
But betwixt and between, is there anything that we can be on the lookout for from you?
Well, I'm working on some things. I still work with CUNY TV. I still freelance as a producer and a journalist. But in terms of like the stories that I tell, I would just say that I'm working on my second novel, and that I just signed with a literary agent. So my prayer is that more of my work will come out. But for this book, Patience is a Subtle Thief, I'm still promoting it. And I'm praying that certain opportunities come to fruition for this particular story. So pray along with me.
Yes, I will pray with you. Yeah, we would touch and agree virtually.
Yes.
Right, because while I was watching one of your other interviews, they talked about, something on film or, television. I can see it. It is a story that would be good for that. So crossing everything.
Yes.
Yes, it definitely was. Especially, I'm just thinking of the fact, like I mentioned to you before, we talked about, I love Nollywood. So, I mean, this would be a good story that would fit some of the things that, I've seen being put out, with your own unique spin to the story. So, yeah. I could see that.
Thank you. I love when people say it because it goes right up.
Right, exactly. I could definitely see it.
I love that. Thank you.
So, well, you're so welcome. So I want to thank you. I'm going to let you go. Well, actually, if you wait a second for me.
Sure.
And I'm just going to give a couple of quick announcements, and I just want to chat with you real quick before we head out. But thank you so much for your time. I will holler at you in a second, and we'll look to see you again when the next book comes out.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. So everybody, of course, next week is a holiday. So Labor Day here in the United States, if you are watching in the United States. So I will not be hosting a show next week, but in 2 weeks, I will be back with Suzette Harrison, who is the author of My Name is Ona Judge, which is a historical fiction novel. Actually, it'll be her third time coming on this show. So I'm looking forward to talking to her in 2 weeks. Then in 3 weeks, we will have a tag team coming on September 19th, the book The Thread Collectors by Shauna J. Edwards and Allison Richmond. They will be on the 19th. And then on the most important day of the year, because it's my birthday, on 9/26, we will have Latoya Watkins on to talk about her book Parish. So those are the things that we can look to see in the September to remember. So I hope that you all will join us, and looking forward to talking to more wonderful Black women writers. So I bid you all a good evening or good morning or afternoon, depending on when you're watching. And I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.